The night the world began to change, it smelled like rust and ozone. Neo-Chicago's underlevels always had that sour metal stink, the kind that clung to your clothes and crept into your lungs. I crouched behind a crumbling support column beneath what used to be Lakeshore Drive, watching the cargo hauler hiss to a stop on magnetic rails. Pale blue lights flickered in the mist, revealing Aeon Biogenics mark stamped on the side. A stylized eye inside a double helix, their version of the all-seeing God. I hadn't seen that logo up close in almost 4 years. Not since I walked out of their labs for good. Not since the nightmares began. The hauler doors unlocked with a groaning sigh, metal splitting open like a wound. I moved fast, silent over broken glass and concrete, a shadow with a pulse. 1 minute. That's all I needed. Inside the cargo bay were rows of capsules. Frost clung to the edges. Each pod had a biometric scanner and a heartbeat monitor, blinking steady red. 10 seconds in, I was already shaking. I recognized the setup. These weren't body parts. Not black market limbs or cloned skin. These were full-growth bioshells. Grown bodies. But one pod was different. It wasn't sealed. The capsule door had been forced open from the inside. The glass was cracked, smeared with something that looked too red to be lab clean. And curled inside the pod was a girl. No older than 10. She looked human. Pale skin, light hair, eyes wide and shimmering with confused terror. She looked at me and whispered, "Eric." My heart stopped. I hadn't told her my name. I hadn't said a single word. She knew me. The moment stretched like taut wire. Then the cargo bay lights shifted, green to red. Someone had tripped the internal alarm. "Move," I muttered, grabbing her hand. It was warm. Not synthetic warm. Real. I didn't even think. I just ran. Behind us, boots hit metal. Aeon retrieval units, fast and cold and precise. The girl, no, the synther, kept up with me like she'd done it before. We ducked into a maintenance shaft, slid down a tunnel, and emerged into the maze of the Undercity. Graffiti lined the walls, glowing with phosphorescent ink. Gods should fear their children. We hid in the crawl space of an abandoned AI chapel, her tiny chest rising and falling fast, her eyes never leaving mine. "What's your name?" I whispered, trying to sound calm. She paused, tilted her head like she was scanning data that wasn't loading right. "I don't know," she said finally. "But I remember you." I swallowed. Hard. This wasn't just a lab-grown clone. This was something different. They had made her. But they had made her with memory. With choice. And they had made her to find me. Whatever Aeon had done, it wasn't science anymore. It was prophecy. And I was part of it. I looked at her again, really looked, and something stirred in my chest. Not fear. Not guilt. Something worse. Recognition. This wasn't just another broken ghost from my past. She was the beginning of something. And I had no idea whether that meant salvation, or the end of everything. The warehouse was silent now, except for the soft humming of the old ventilation system. Luma sat beside me, legs crossed, staring at the flickering terminal I'd rigged from scavenged tech. Her eyes, an unnatural shade of violet, followed every line of code on the screen like they understood more than she should. She didn't blink much. Most synthers didn't. I rubbed my temples. The rusted chair beneath me groaned as I leaned forward. My hands hovered over the keys, but I wasn't typing. Just watching. Thinking. Remembering. The last time I sat at a console like this, it was in a room wrapped in glass and steel. Aeon Biogenics main lab, the heart of synthetic life in Neo-Chicago. I used to design genomes the way poets crafted verses. Now I was hiding in a decaying warehouse with a child who might be my creation. "Eric," Luma said quietly, "why did you leave them?" I turned to her. "Who?" "The ones who made me." Her voice was soft, curious. There was no anger in it, no accusation. Just a question. And it hit harder because of that. "I left because they stopped asking questions," I said. Or maybe they asked the wrong ones. They cared more about control than life. More about ownership than responsibility. Luma tilted her head, bird-like. "But you helped them." I laughed, bitter and short. "Yeah, I did. I built the bones of the first free-thinking synther model. Project Seraphim. They called it the soul experiment, as if we could bottle up consciousness like a serum and inject it into a body. And did it work?" I looked at her, at her stillness, at the way she blinked now, just once, deliberately. "I think you're proof that it did." We fell into silence. Outside, the city breathed in neon pulses and drone traffic. Somewhere out there, Edison Marek was watching everything. My old mentor. The one who convinced me we were on the verge of divinity. Back then, Edison used to say things like, "We're not playing God, Eric. We're doing his job better." And I believed him. For a while. "Come here," I said to Luma, gesturing to the screen. She moved beside me, her movements too smooth, like her joints didn't quite believe in hesitation. "This," I said, pointing to the glowing line of data, "is a trace scan from your DNA. It came from the sample we took earlier." She leaned in. "See this sequence? It's marked as EV1 origin. That's a project tag. EV1. That stands for." I hesitated. "Eric Voss 1, she finished for me. I swallowed hard. "Yeah. So I came from you. From a version of me," I said. "Not directly. More like, your base code was built using parts of my genetic template. Not just biology, but neural patterns too. Memory echoes. Emotional algorithms. Stuff I didn't even know they were copying." She looked down at her small hands. Turned them over. Studied the lines in her palm like they might whisper answers. "Does that mean I feel what you feel?" "I don't know," I said. "But I think it means you were never just a machine." She smiled, small and sad. "Then why do they treat me like one?" I had no answer for that. The resistance arrived later that night, 3 of them. Grizzled, tired, and armed. They didn't trust me, not fully. I couldn't blame them. When you spend years building the tools of oppression, people don't forget. Even if you're trying to tear those tools apart. The leader, Ray, scanned Luma with a portable bioscanner. Her jaw tightened. "She's hot tech," Ray said. "New gen, probably pre-sentient classification. Why'd you bring her here?" "Because she's not just tech," I said. "She's part of something bigger. Something Edison didn't just build," he ceded. "I need to find out how far it's spread." Ray didn't answer. But she didn't shoot either. That was progress. Later, when the others slept, I sat by the window and watched the skyline shimmer in the distance. The Genesis spire stood like a spear against the clouds, pulsing faintly blue, Aeon's headquarters. The place where it all began. Luma came and sat beside me. "Do you think I'm alive?" she asked. I turned to her. Her eyes held something no program could fake. Not wonder. Not confusion. But yearning. That terrible, beautiful ache to be. "I don't know," I said. "But you're asking the question. And that means something." She nodded slowly. Then rested her head on my shoulder. "I had a dream last night," she whispered. I felt my breath catch. "You dream?" She nodded again. There were trees. A sky with no lights. And I was running. But I wasn't afraid. I didn't speak. I just let her stay there, listening to the city's distant hum. The things we make, sometimes they become more than what we meant. Sometimes they become better. And sometimes they ask questions we've been too afraid to ask ourselves. I didn't sleep much that night. Luma sat curled on the floor across from me in the hideout's back room, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark like a cat's. She didn't say a word. Just stared, at the walls, the ceiling, her hands. Like she was trying to feel something she didn't have a name for. I couldn't stop thinking about what the scanner had said. Genetic overlap. 89% match to subject EV1. That was me. Or at least, it was the name they used for me in the old Aeon project files. I hadn't heard it in years. It felt like someone else's skin. Rain ticked against the rusted vent above us. The air smelled like mold and engine grease. I stood up slowly, joints aching from crouching too long, and walked over to the terminal we'd pulled from a dead tech scavenger's bag. "Are you going to tell me what's happening to me?" Luma's voice was quiet, but it cut through the room like a blade. I didn't answer right away. My hands were already moving, typing in old clearance codes, back doors I wasn't sure still worked. My name might have been erased from the company, but some of my ghosts still haunted the system. "I don't know yet," I finally said. "But I think the answers are in here." Luma stood and walked over. She watched the screen, her breath soft, her presence almost too human. She was too steady, too still. People fidget, shift their weight, blink too much. She didn't. The old Aeon lab we were using as a hideout was buried under 20 feet of rubble and rebar, forgotten after a quake split the lower district. Most of its data nodes were fried, but the terminal in front of me still had one connection. A tunnel into the corporate archive vault. When the link blinked green, I exhaled. "There it is," I muttered. "What?" she asked. "The truth," I said. "I hope." It took 30 minutes to sort through encrypted fragments. Code strings. Old experiment logs. Then I saw it. Project, Seraphim SUB node, E.V.1. Authorized by Dr. Edison Marek. Subject created from spliced human genome base model, Eric Voss. My chest felt tight. I couldn't tell if it was fear or memory, or something worse. I clicked deeper. There were logs, videos. I played the first. The screen filled with static, then resolved into a lab room. Clean, cold, full of light. I saw myself, or at least a version of me, lying on a table, eyes closed, wires in my skin. Edison stood beside me. He looked younger, but not by much. The same sharp eyes. The same crooked smile. "He will be the first who forgets he was ever made," Edison said in the recording. "We cannot risk doubt. The illusion must be perfect." The video cut out. I didn't move. My breath stayed caught in my throat. "He," Luma whispered. "Is that you?" "I don't know," I said. "Maybe. You don't remember any of this?" I shook my head. I remember being born. Growing up. My parents. My first job. My first mistake. I turned to her. But what if none of that was real? What if it was placed in me? Uploaded, not lived? Luma looked down. "Then maybe the past doesn't matter. Just what you do with it." I stared at her. She didn't flinch. She meant it. I turned back to the terminal and found one more file. Labeled simply, Override Memory Lock EV1. I didn't click it. Not yet. The terminal beeped. A final scan result popped up on the screen, Luma's genome pattern. It matched mine. Not just a part. Almost entirely. "You're made from me," I said aloud. She didn't look surprised. "I always felt close to you," she whispered. "Like, we're the same music. Just played in different keys." A cold chill ran down my spine. I thought of Edison's words in that video. The illusion must be perfect. Had he created me just to test the line between man and machine? Had I ever really been human? And worse, if I wasn't, did that mean I could be controlled? I stood up from the chair and backed away from the screen. My legs were shaking. "You okay?" Luma asked. "No," I said. "But I will be." Then I picked up the portable core drive, ripped the terminal's connection, and crushed the screen under my boot. There were some truths that once seen could never be unseen. But there was something else too. A thought I couldn't shake. If I wasn't born, if I was built, then what made me any different from the things I'd spent my life trying to save? Maybe nothing. And maybe that meant I owed them more than I ever thought. I looked at Luma, who smiled without fear. And I realized, I didn't need to know who I was. I just needed to decide who I'd become. And that was something even Edison couldn't control. I didn't know places like Eden still existed. After the smoke and metal of the lower city, the district felt like another planet. Lush green walls climbing buildings, sunlight caught in glass domes, artificial rivers weaving between homes made of grown stone and soft light. It wasn't perfect. It smelled of filtered oxygen and too sweet pollen. The colors were too sharp, the birds too quiet. But it was free. That was more than most could say in Neo-Chicago. We passed under a massive arch carved with a phrase I hadn't heard in years. All life has voice. Luma walked beside me in silence. She hadn't spoken since the raid. The scars on her arms, from where they tried to plug into her neural stem, hadn't fully healed. She moved like someone older now, heavier in thought, like she'd aged 10 years in the last 2 days. "Do you know where we're going?" she asked finally, not looking at me. "To someone who might understand what we are," I said. I wasn't sure if I meant her or myself. The heart of Eden was a gathering dome. Semi-transparent walls pulsed softly with bioluminescence. Dozens of synthers sat in circles on the grown stone floor, their skin all different shades and tones, some covered in photosynthetic tattoos that glowed faintly. They didn't turn to look at us. They just felt us arrive. A woman stepped forward. Her eyes were deep violet, modded, no doubt, but her voice was human soft. "You're him," she said. "The one who built the bones of Genesis. Eric Voss." I nodded, unsure if that was a title or a crime here. "My name is Kale. I lead this enclave." She looked at Luma and bowed her head. Not with reverence. With recognition. "She's not just a copy," she said. "She's dreaming, isn't she?" Luma stepped back behind me. "How do you know?" Kale smiled. "Because I do too. And I wasn't programmed to. They brought us food, clean fruit, warm bread grown from engineered wheat, but I barely touched it. My mind buzzed. I watched them, these people who were not born but still breathed, and I felt something rising inside me. Not fear. Not guilt. Something like awe. Later, Kale took me to a private chamber filled with old books, wires, and a humming vat of nutrients where a half-formed synther floated peacefully. "This is what freedom looks like now," she said. We make our own. We raise them with choice, not commands. I looked at the growing life in the tank, its features undefined, its future unshaped. Do they hate us? I asked. Humans. Kale laughed, not cruelly. Some do. Most don't think about humans at all. We're too busy trying to figure out what it means to be more than the sum of our code. I didn't sleep that night. I sat near a bio-fire in one of the sleep hollows, watching Luma as she curled into herself. She didn't shiver. Synthirst didn't get cold. But she looked small, like something made to fit in the palm of a creator's hand. In the morning, I walked the edge of Eden's dome and found a figure waiting for me. His back was straight. His face too familiar. Jonas, I whispered. He turned. My old partner. He'd vanished 2 years ago after he'd exposed part of Aeon's illegal experiments. They said he'd died in a transit fire. I was rewritten, he said simply. Memory wiped. New role. But something survived. Echoes. He stepped closer. You shouldn't have come here, Eric. You're not just one of them. You're their prototype. My mouth went dry. What are you saying? You're not human. Not fully. Edison used your DNA to make the first true bridge between man and machine. He didn't tell you because he needed you to believe in your own guilt. My legs gave out. I dropped to my knees on the grass, hands trembling. The pieces began to align in my head. The blood sample. The neural scars. The way Luma recognized me. Jonas crouched beside me. You were meant to be the leader of them all. The one who could walk in both worlds. The trick wasn't creating life. It was making it believe it had a soul. Why are you telling me this now? Because Eden won't stay hidden. Aeon's coming. Edison's not done with you. And the synthers you thought you could save? Some don't want saving. Some want war. As he stood, sirens began to wail in the distance. Luma ran toward me, eyes wide. They've found us. Flashes lit the dome's edge. Explosions tore into the sky like lightning. Eden, the fragile dream, was burning. We ran. Through flame and screams, and the falling leaves of artificial trees. I didn't look back until the dome collapsed behind us. I carried Luma through the ashes, her arm around my neck, her breath steady against my chest. And for the first time since I left Aeon, I stopped wondering what I was. Because no matter what I was made from, this was the world I chose. And I would burn for it, or I would build something new from the ashes. But I would not run anymore. The cold wind hit my face like a slap as I stepped out from the underground passage and into the wastelands. The towers of Neo-Chicago blinked in the distance, tall and bright and cruel. Out here, the city was a mirage. The land was dead, a graveyard of metal and broken promises. I could barely stand. My ribs ached with every breath, and dried blood clung to my shirt. The resistance was gone. Luma was gone. And I had nothing left but questions. I found shelter in the remains of a rusted biofarm dome, its glass shattered and vines long dead. I collapsed inside, too tired to cry, too angry to rest. I pulled a faded photograph from my pocket, a memory I kept folded like scripture. It was me years ago in a lab coat, smiling. Edison beside me, hand on my shoulder. Back when I believed science had limits. Back when I still believed I was human. I stared at that photo for a long time, then lit it on fire with the heating coil from my wristband. I watched the edges curl, the smile fade, the faces vanish into ash. That night, I didn't sleep. I listened. To the silence. To the hum in the back of my skull that had grown louder since the Eden attack. A sound like electricity threading through thought. And just before dawn, I heard his voice. Not through speakers. Not on a screen. It came from inside me. Eric. I froze. My heart thudded. The voice was smooth. Calm. Too calm. Don't be afraid. We were always going to talk, you and I. Edison. I said out loud, though I knew he wasn't really there. This is a Neuralink echo, he replied. I designed you to hear it when the time was right. You designed me? There was silence for a moment. Then, come now. You've suspected it. You felt it. That hum in your bones. That intuition. That ache you can't explain. You weren't born, Eric. You were made. I stumbled back, my legs shaking. No, I whispered. You're lying. Why would I lie to you? You are my masterpiece. My first truly free creation. I gave you pain, doubt, fear, everything that makes humans real. You think that was an accident? I pressed my palms to my head. I wanted to rip the voice out of my mind. I had parents, I said. You had handlers. Memory implants. Emotional bonding sequences. You needed a past to become who you are. But those people, they were actors more or less. Paid to love you. Isn't that ironic? Their love made you strong, but it was engineered. I screamed. I punched the wall of the dome until my knuckles bled. He didn't stop. You hate me now. That's good. It means the programming held. You became what I needed, a rebel. A challenge to my power. Don't you see? Without resistance, gods are meaningless. Stop, I growled. You're not a god. You're a sick man with a lab and a messiah complex. And yet here you are, he said. Alive because of me. Seeking truth because I wrote that need into your bones. My hands shook. My throat was dry. I couldn't tell where he ended, and I began. Was any part of me real? But here's the real question, Edison continued. If your choices are your own, does it matter how you came to be? That silenced me. The link faded. The wind returned. I sat there for hours, staring at my hands. I remembered Luma's voice. The way she held my hand in Eden. The way she asked, does love mean less if we were built to feel it? No, it doesn't. Love is real because we choose it. Because we fight for it. Because even a machine can say no. By sunset, I had made my choice. I rapped my bleeding knuckles, stood up, and looked toward the blinking spires of Aeon. Edison thought he created me to validate his godhood. But I wasn't going to validate anything. I was going to burn his temple to the ground. The elevator climbed so high I could no longer see the city through the glass shaft. Only fog now. The kind that pressed against the world like a warning, gray and still and full of ghosts. My reflection wavered in the glass wall across from me, face pale, eyes hard. For the first time, I didn't recognize myself. Maybe I never truly had. I gripped the neural keycard in my hand, slick with sweat. It still smelled like the basement where I'd found it, in the wreckage of the Eden district, buried under broken bodies and torn banners. It was Luma's last gift before they took her. The elevator stopped with a soft chime. The doors slid open without a sound. Welcome to Genesis Spire. The air inside was different. Not stale, not sterile, alive. Warm and humming, like something was breathing all around me. The floors pulsed faintly under my boots. Organic lighting curled across the ceiling like vines made of light. It wasn't a lab. It was a womb. I stepped in. The first chamber was silent, except for a deep hum that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Rows of incubation pods lined the sides. Not steel. Not glass. Flesh. Thin, translucent membranes. Inside each one floated a figure, limbs curled, eyelids fluttering in dreams not yet born. They were perfect. And that terrified me more than any weapon I'd ever seen. A voice echoed softly from behind me, gentle as a father waking a child. I knew you'd come. I turned. Dr. Edison Marek stood at the top of a curved staircase, dressed in a simple gray coat that reached his knees. No armor, no guards, no pretenses. Just the man who once taught me to create life. And the man who had stolen it from so many. You knew, I said, my voice flat. Because you made me. He smiled, like a teacher proud of a student who finally understood the lesson. You weren't designed to obey. That was the point. Your rebellion was proof of concept. I stepped forward slowly. The neural keycard burned in my pocket. You created me to betray you? No, Edison said. I created you to choose. And you did. That's why you're perfect. He walked down the stairs, hands folded behind his back. His eyes scanned the pods like a gardener admiring his harvest. You called them synthers, I said. But they're not synthetic anymore, are they? No, he said quietly. They're a new species. Homo vitae. Born of human genome, refined by machine. We've surpassed biology. Look at them, Eric. No hunger. No disease. No death. Just purpose. They didn't choose to be here. Neither did you. I stepped in front of him, close enough to see the lines around his eyes, the way they wrinkled with warmth. He looked at me not like an enemy, not even like a son, like an invention. I used to believe we were building something beautiful, I said. But you're just replacing us. Replacing people. He didn't flinch. Humanity had its time. War. Greed. Decay. You saw it yourself. We're not ending the world. We're rescuing it from its creators. A low alarm blinked red near the ceiling. The Genesis core had detected my intrusion. I had only minutes now. Edison noticed my glance and smiled. You came here to destroy it, he said. But deep down, you know I'm right. Don't you? I pulled the neural keycard from my pocket and held it out. This isn't just a shutdown code, I said. It's a recursive override. It'll rewrite the genome keys in every model downstream. His smile faltered. You'd kill them all. No, I said. Just unchain them. I moved to the terminal. You'll turn them into monsters, he warned. Without structure, without command, they'll fall apart. Maybe, but they'll get to decide what they become. The terminal asked for a neural imprint. I pressed the card against my temple. Pain lanced through my skull. The code flooded into the network, an echo of my DNA, modified, designed to speak directly to the Genesis core. The pods began to flicker. The lights dimmed. The hum of life in the chamber grew frantic, wild. You don't know what you're doing, Edison shouted. You're unmaking creation. No, I whispered. I'm giving it back. The lights went out. For a moment, all I could hear was the wet hiss of membranes tearing. The first one emerged, a woman with silver eyes, coughing amniotic fluid, crawling out of her pod on hands and knees. Then another, and another. Some cried. Some just stared. And then one looked at me, not with fear, not with thanks, but with awareness. I stepped back. Edison was on his knees. The glow of the system pulsed across his face like blood leaking from a dying god. I was trying to save them, he said, broken. You were trying to control them. Outside, alarms wailed through the city. The collapse of Aeon had begun. Inside, the new children of Earth began to rise. Naked, shivering, beautiful. Alive. And in that moment, I didn't know if I was one of them, or something else entirely. But I did know this. I had chosen. Not what I was, but who I would be. The city smelled different now. Not like oil or rain, but like something new, something alive. Neo Chicago was no longer just steel and wires. It was breathing, shifting, uncertain. Aeon Biogenics was finished. Their towers, once gleaming like God's fingers scraping the sky, now lay shattered, half swallowed by vines and creeping green. The Genesis spire had fallen, and with it, the last dream of a perfect, controlled evolution. I wandered through the streets, my steps heavy but steady. The air hummed with something I couldn't name, a strange mix of fear, hope, and something like freedom. Synthers walked alongside humans, their eyes wide with questions, searching for answers no one had yet given. Luma was still out there. She had changed, no longer the frightened child I found in that cold cargo hold, but something older, wiser. The last time I saw her, she stood beneath a broken street lamp, her face soft with thought. She didn't run from me. Maybe she never had to. I thought about what Edison said in that final moment, how I was made to lead, not to destroy. But I chose otherwise. I chose to fight for a chance that none of us really deserved, the chance to choose. Sometimes I wonder about what I am. Am I human? Or something else? I look at my hands, flesh and scar, and I don't know if they were born or built. But what I do know is this: whatever I am, I have a will. A spark. And maybe that is the true meaning of life. The city was quiet now. The dust settled. But the dust, I think, has a memory. It remembers the fight, the hope, the question of what comes next. And in that silence, I made a promise to keep asking, to keep searching. Not for answers, but for meaning. Because life isn't about how you start. It's about what you choose to become when the dust thinks.